Okay, next item on the agenda. We have a short agenda. We might get out early tonight. Announcements. But I don't see staff report. So Ernest, is this part of these announcements, the staff report?
Commission staff report is right
Oh,
after.
under commission. Okay, yeah, I wasn't reading. Okay, any announcements then? Announcements. We're having the unmanned aerial system presentation discussion meeting this Saturday.
Yeah, and everybody should have.
Everybody has a flyer, and I hope you will all attend. It's not required. It's not a real session where you have to have a quorum or anything, but it's quite informative.
But it's really, really helpful if everybody shows up. The last one we had some reasonable attendance from other council members, but it was a subset, and there was a lot of SUPD was there in all grass. They did their part. A lot of activist individuals that are very concerned about this issue. We were reflecting their views, and we need to hear their views to reflect them properly, make the right recommendations. So please, I encourage everyone to be there. I'll certainly be there. It's an important issue to a lot of people. Thanks.
I'm sorry, I will be out of town on Saturday. That's just for the record. But I do want to announce also that we have tomorrow night at 6:45 at Emmanuel Baptist Church. There will be an open forum, which is supposed to be really, really crowded. It is called the Santa Clara County Voices Claiming the Beloved Community, launching a county-wide movement for peace, healing, and equity. Present, we are expecting most of the city council and council seats to be present. Our new mayor will be there. The chief of police and other officers from the police department. I forgot to ask Judge LaDoris Cardell, over the IPA if she will be there. But this is supposed to be a very interesting discussion tomorrow night, starting at 6:45 at Emmanuel Baptist Church. What's the address? Thank you. Emmanuel, hold on. I'm sorry, that address is 647 North White Road here in San Jose.
Do you have to RSVP or just show up?
Just show up.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, Juan.
I won't be able to make it to that UAS meeting. I have a Cub Scout snow trip, but on the 24th of this month, it's a Saturday, just an FYI in case something similar could happen in your district. There will be a District 5 Neighborhood Leaders Summit that will include the new council member and the new mayor so that they can hear concerns, and about 15 neighborhood groups have already indicated that they will send one or more representatives. It's a 2-hour block. It should be very productive, and so that's happening in District 5 on the 24th of this month.
I'm smiling a little.
Oh,
because
if
we have
you
the districts.
members of the public can observe, but there will be designated speakers per each neighborhood. I throw that out because if you show up, you won't participate, unfortunately, because of the time constraint. It's at 10 a.m. to noon at the Alum Rock Library in the community room. That's at the corner of White Road and Alum Rock.
We have the District 6 meetings for all the neighborhood associations get, but we do not invite the councilor or the mayor because they're talking about.
Oh yeah, this is a special summit, so we'll still have our regular meeting on the 28th, what we call the community meeting, but this is a summit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other announcements? Okay, staff report.
All right. A lot of you have been aware that there's been major changes in the city manager's office. So there is new leadership in place. My boss, Norberto Duenas, is now the interim city manager. And he announced all the appointments to fill all the vacancies, at least on an interim basis, while the new mayor and council look to fill those positions perhaps in 6 months on a more permanent basis. Also, if you weren't aware, the fire chief offered his resignation this week, and so there'll be another vacancy that they'll be doing some type of search for. So there's a lot of movement in city government and administration, if you haven't been following the news lately. So it's all dramatic, and it's all hopefully going to lead to definitely a different style of leadership, both at the city administration level and at the mayor and council level. The priority for those of you that can't attend this coming Saturday is going to be the next community meeting. I have reserved about 70 chairs for the library. The last meeting we had here on Saturday, December 6th, I put out 80 chairs plus about 18 chairs for commissioners. During the period during which the hearing was held, pretty much the full 2 hours, there were at least 120 people in attendance. So that was quite a successful gathering, and there was quite a bit of information that was shared with the police department. The draft documents that PowerPoint and the draft document from that was prepared for December 6th will be the same documents that will be available at the meeting this coming Saturday, the 17th. They haven't changed. I checked with PD today, mainly because they're still gathering information, and they'll more likely prepare a final draft after the next meeting that'll occur somewhere in District 5. The interest on what the commission is doing with this particular subject has been fairly intense. We get calls from other media. I talked to Assemblymember Campos' office yesterday, and they sent out a press release today talking about the Assemblywoman's interest in the UAS discussion going on here in San Jose, and it looks like she sponsored some bills in the Assembly last year, so it looks like she's going to follow this particular discussion fairly closely. What I'll do also before the meeting on Saturday, if I can add it to my workload, is I've been forwarded quite a few articles on the UAS subject, articles from the New York Times, different examples in different cities. So this discussion has been going on nationwide, and this is a part of that discussion. The actual wider nationwide discussion falls not so much on the police use of drones as much as it is the emerging focus on business use of drones and personal use of drones. So that piece that you're looking at falls into that discussion, but is rather overwhelmed by the broader discussion. And one of the ones that I thought was fairly interesting, and I'll forward that to you, is that there was some indication that there, I believe it's the Justice Department, or some government federal agency is looking for the participation of local police forces in actually following up on the illegal use of drones. Certainly a little bit of irony to that in terms of, but there doesn't seem to be any actual dedication of resources to let police do that. I think it's just something that they're flying up as a balloon to see how police forces can assist the federal government in regulation of private and business use of drones. So just be aware that you are looking at one subset of this, and that nevertheless it's being followed fairly closely by other municipalities. The budget discussion that you are charged with in looking and thinking about it, since you brought it up, I do think it needs to be on the agenda for the February agenda, mainly because you only have at that point more than likely 3 months to really gather information and make your recommendations in some preliminary form, probably the end of April, and then finalize it potentially in May, and then send it off to council. You've always been fairly successful in that time period. And since this is a big component of what you've done annually for the last 3 or 4 years, I think it does need to be a part of the agenda. The reality is that as you start heading towards your first year of full empowerment as a permanent commission, that you have been fairly successful in following at least 1 or 2 different elements. And the public discussion around the UAS has really been an engagement with the whole community. You've had quite a few people show up at the December 6th meeting. You had quite a few people show up to the November meeting, and there certainly appears to be interest in the meeting coming up on the 17th. I anticipate that your meeting in the east side of San Jose will be well attended also because of the public safety issues that are part of that discussion in the east side of San Jose. So as you ramp that up, part of what you're going to be looking at is the issues of the budget and making a recommendation letter to the mayor and council sometime at the end of May or maybe your May meeting. You also need to start thinking as you listen to all the particular discussions and public testimony as to what you are going to be recommending to the mayor and council, because that is part of your responsibility. So once again, as you listen carefully to that discussion and look at what San Jose PD has put forward, start thinking and having a discussion among yourselves or individually as to what you support, what you don't support, and what you think needs to be in that discussion, because your letter does not need to parrot what PD is going to be forward. And then I think that as you, and I'm going to say this, and you may look at me and say, what are you talking about? By November of next year, or this year, and I know we're just starting, you are going to have to start preparing for the 2016 caucuses, which will happen in the spring. Right around this time, you'll go to council with your work plan. So 12 months from now, you're going to start developing, you'll have a developing work plan to present to council for their yes or no vote as to what your spring 2016 caucuses, which will be the even members that are around this table right now. So keep that in the back of your mind as you prioritize where we end up going, realizing that it is tempting to go ahead and have a lot of issues emerge that are part of your discussion. But sometimes, you know, you really do need to bring the work product that you've successfully done to fruition. And I see at least 2 or 3 that you can report to council on the early part of next year to say we've achieved this, this, and that. So I'm saying that as both a pep talk and a consideration as you start moving through February, March, April, and then all of a sudden May, because by the time you hit June, you'll really start also developing the next components of your future work plan based upon what you're hearing. For instance, DOT approached this last year and said pedestrian safety may be one of our priorities in looking at it. So having said that, you all need to be thinking about what you want to bring to the table and what I want to add to the agenda as a permanent issue. We used to have this about 3 years ago, is what I call a section on emerging issues in the neighborhoods. That simply means that staff shouldn't be directing a lot of your work. You also, if you hear about an increase in burglaries in the Willow Glen area, if whatever the issues that are affecting your neighborhoods that we're not aware of and that you don't discuss among yourselves, I'll add that to the agenda so that you can begin that discussion about what you think you see as priorities in your various parts of the city. And we used to have that about 4 years ago, and it went off of the radar because of all the necessity for making this a permanent commission. And now that you're permanent, I think you do need to add that roundtable that's a part of your discussion every meeting. So as staff, I'm saying, I'll add it on there if you want to talk about the emerging issues or not. that's gonna be up to you, but that's a good place, as Commissioner Estrada said, where do we have a section to talk about what we could potentially add to the agenda? So I think this will assist you in that discussion, and a meeting prior to the agenda then could be given to the chair, the vice chair, and then considered for inclusion in the next month's agenda. Because even though we hear from, I will say this in the best of intentions. A lot of the issues that occur in the city are not necessarily D5 issues, they're not necessarily D3 issues, they're not necessarily D6 issues. I think that we also have room around the table for the, for the discussion around D9 issues, certainly D10 has been vocal, but whatever you see emerging in your various leadership groups, feel free to talk about them and say, this is what we're hearing and this is what we add from this section of the city. So I'm recommending that because I know, unfortunately, with D4, you've not had a compatriot for almost a year and a half. We had Commissioner Tran, who was selected, attended one meeting, and then because of workload and college load had to resign. So I realized that we have 3 vacancies, and Commissioner Tran, Johnson Tran, you may have met him at one meeting, he resigned in late December. And so I informed the chair and the council office, so they're aware of doing a search. I'm going to be meeting with Council Member Margie Matthews. I've talked to her Chief of Staff, Armando Gomez, and put it on their radar that I know she's only in office for a temporary amount of time. If there's a runoff, she'll be there longer. But certainly that needs to be filled sooner rather than later. And then with D8, and then, let's see, which is the other one? D8, D1, because Councilmember Constant wanted to fill that position before he left, but then he met with the incoming council member, who used to be a commissioner, and he decided to let Commissioner Jones make that selection. So we've lost several months in filling that vacancy. So we've got 3 vacancies at this point, which now brings us down to 17. I'd forgotten about D1 because that was a while ago. So that's a priority for those of you from those different districts that are here. Commissioner Cunningham is not here today, and Matt is, and Linda is. So I've been talking to the clerk's office, and in some cases we don't have applications, which means that if you know someone, I know that D8 has already submitted a name. I talked to the clerk's office last Friday about that. So I'm trying to get these on a fast track so that they can get filled in the next go-round of appointments. So I'm not sure when the clerk's forwarding those, but sooner rather than later, so we can fill you back up and represent all the parts of the city. That's my report. A lot of it's food for thought, and certainly however many of you can show up on Saturday, that would be terrific, because it does give you exposure to the public. And once again, people ask me, like the Assembly Member's Office asked me, who's sponsoring this? Is it the CMO? And I said, no, it's the Neighborhoods Commission. So we need to keep your name out there so people can get used to coming to you, knowing you, and then you become more engaged with the community at large.
Can I make a comment? I'm sorry.
No, I'm done. Yeah.
Thank you. The process that we've engaged in with this drone issue has been a really good one. The SJPD has been driven to be very forthcoming and put together what their view is and consolidate that view in a document that's publicly available, that is out there, it's been in the press, lots of people heard about it, more people need to hear about it. I don't think any of that would have happened without us taking focus on this issue, and the entire process has been a very productive one. Whatever the outcome is, whatever the body decides to make its recommendation to City Council, will be a good recommendation. And hopefully it should, and I think it will, reflect the views of the citizenry at large, take into consideration the issues in public safety stewardship that the SUPD is responsible for. So I'm really pleased with the process and how it's worked, and I think we're so much further along, even though it may seem like we've had a few meetings, had a lot of talk, a lot of people showing up with signs. That's good, and it really has honed what the position of the SUPD is, and I think it has educated the broader citizenry quite a bit beyond where they were. When I heard drones originally, I thought it was a weaponized drone that we use in warfare. So quite a bit more educated on drones now. So it's been really good. So I encourage you all to please attend, and we'll have the best outcome that way. Thanks.
Okay, Desiree?
Ernest, I was going to request that if there's any way we could get some kind of like a formal handout with a description of what the Neighborhoods Commission is, because I've been doing a lot of outreach in my district, and it would be nice to have something to give to the neighborhood associations instead of just kind of, you know, talking out of thin air. And I did want to thank you for the business cards.
Yeah, I forgot. For those of you that haven't picked them up, I had business cards for all of you. Thank you for being patient 4 years. But it was a budget thing. And so I got authorization to get all of you business cards. So if you haven't picked them up, look for them there and take them with you, please. As far as what you're asking for a handout, I actually have a one-pager that I put together with all of your names and what you do as the first edition of the newsletter, but that can easily be turned into that. It's just one page, so.
Yeah, it's just as long as it's something that I can bring. I always, like, I would probably bring this tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm meeting with the North Side Neighborhood Association. So I'll bring some of these with me, but I like to be resourceful as much as possible.
Okay.
To your point, that can be done in 2 or 3 languages. It could have broader reach.
Just a couple of things. One is I echo Nick's sentiment about the UAS meeting, and additionally I think that my personal opinion is that it may have been helpful to the police department to be able to say the Neighbors Commission requested that we do this, that we create this draft, that we, etc. So I do encourage you guys to go. Sorry that I cannot make it, but I will make it to the final one. And then in terms of Ernest brought up the product that we will deliver, and what I have on my list and is UAS, the annual budget, and when we talk about it, I'll bring up the Community Action and Pride grants. I'm sure we'll have a lot of topics to discuss, but there's another product. Fireworks. I have homelessness. Not a lot of work, but at some point we're going to create a product. And I think we created a letter related to the BART situation, Allen Rock BART situation.
I was going to say, we weighed in on BART, and I spoke.
Oh yeah, I'm just trying to make sure, because I think there's only so much we can handle, and I think we are getting.
0-4 policy, we weighed in on that also.
The what?
Bylaws for all the different commissions, the policies for the commissions.
Right, that was the answer to 0.4.
Policy 0.4.
Yeah. And the only thing I would add new is I've seen a lot in the local, what we would call the newspaper, about police department metrics. And I don't know about you, but I don't know how valid that information is. And I threw out via email that maybe at a future meeting we could have the police department report on metrics, and maybe we could ask things. I mean, there's things like, I remember a few years ago where I read in the local paper that they had changed their methodology, and so old statistics couldn't be compared to new ones. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if it still is true. I wondered things like retention rate and average years of experience. So I just wonder that, are we like at the benchmark? Are we under it? Are we over it? And so I'm hopeful that in terms of public safety being one of our categories, that at some point in the future we could have the police department present metrics so that we could be informed with good data and move accordingly if we need to. The last thing I'll do is I'll just plug a gentleman. Public comment was related to Pete's video from the UAS meeting on December 6th, and if you go to sanjoseunited.net, that video is there, and feel free to share that with anybody. There's an edited 8-minute version, more digestible, and then there's the full one if you want all the community feedback. That's it.
So I was gonna ask, what happened with our letter that we wrote on behalf of ARC? You sent it to the city council?
It was dropped off to the mayor and all the council members before the end of last year. So it's in their hand. What I should have done, and remind me, is I'll bring it for introduction into our minutes here, so that it'll be an official record then.
Okay, because I did go to one or two public meetings and mentioned that there was a letter coming, and
Yeah, no, and there was
it
actually.
had enough of the impact that I think it helped.
There was a question from a council member who asked the question, is the commission now in the business of talking to the transportation authority, and is that outside of their charge? And I referenced the letter and said, well, you know, they're not asking to talk directly to VTA, rather it is asking the 4 members of the VTA board, who are members of the city council, to pass on, like any public testimony, the questions and asking them to take certain actions. But your letter was not sent directly to VTA, so that was clarified.
Correct.
I was going to ask the same question you just asked, but I just want to say thank you to my fellow Commissioner Marie and to Sergio Gomez of District 2, because this issue on the Phillips train transporting this dangerous gas coming from Canada through San Jose culminated in our district. We wrote a letter and submitted that letter to Osh Kalra, and I don't know if you saw Osh last night on the news or the night before talking about it, but it received a unanimous vote from the city council, and we're very pleased.
Very good.
Can I say something about these vacancies in District 1, 4, and 8? I think when we were just talking about it, we have never wanted our district councilman to appoint us. We're supposed to be coming from the group, from the community. And so I would just say get on the phone, or else get to the leaders of the different neighborhood associations and get them to stir up the pot so that they can have people, come in and, and join us.
Can really represent that
Yeah.
area. Yeah.
4, where's 4? You're 4.
I'm 4.
And
There
1,
is.
who's 1?
He's not here.
Hmm?
Oh, he's not here today, that's Commissioner Cunningham.
Cunningham, and then 8, Matt.
We have
Yeah.
a candidate.
You have a candidate
Yeah.
that wasn't appointed by council?
Any candidate that comes in between cycles, by definition, gets appointed by the council. That's the regulation.
Oh, is that
The city
right?
council has to
Yeah.
pass.
Right.
That's the rules that we worked on last year.
That's why we.
No, I don't remember.
Yes, it was.
Yes, we did.
Rather than going through a whole caucus
Yes,
every
we
time there was a
did.
vacancy, it was in between times, the council member would make the appointment. But you're recommending that the community suggest a candidate to the council member. Now, the council member can do whatever he or she chooses to do, and then it's up to the next cycle. Next year for the even number districts, 3 years from now for the odd number districts, for that person to be reconfirmed or.
Comes from the community,
Yeah, the person,
by caucus.
I would add that the person that is coming forth in District 8 is a very good choice. The council member recently has been doing a lot of outreach through articles in the Evergreen Times to get people to apply for commissions. So a natural talent pool, and this is a neighborhood leader from small, very effective neighborhood.
And us in the even number of districts, it's been a long time since we've gone through any caucus process, so we're kind of been here a long time. Okay, Moses.
Okay, I do have a question. This is for Ernest. Ernest, you said that you have all gone into the other city locations because of the drone conditions, that they were making recommendations and findings?
What I said was the discussion going on in San Jose is being looked at by other municipalities, other cities that are considering the usage. But that just simply means that they're keeping a watch on it. They're not actively soliciting our information.
Oh, I see, okay. Okay, good. Well, I was hoping that they didn't have the determination recommendations so that we could get some of their feedback. So when we have our meeting, we could use that.
Yeah, well, right,
We're
yeah.
really leading in this issue.
Yeah, I think we're the leader.
Are we?
So I
Yes.
saw an editorial in the Los Angeles Times where the police department there was trying to work with the community. I forwarded it to you. I hope sometimes information can be passed around to other people also.
Yeah, what I'll do, like I said, is I'll be forwarding some email links to you so you can read some of the other articles.
Okay.
Okay, any other comments, any other in your report, Ernest?
No, that was it, actually.
Okay, any other announcements from us? We adjourn. I was just gonna say we can leave early sometimes.
Oh, wow. Is that good?
Any other comments? We leave. Move to adjourn, the second,
Yeah, it's good.